Okay, hello everybody. This is Behavioral Leadership Part 2 from our LEA 100 class. Behavioral leadership, as we talked about last time, was about how a person behaves. We talked about trait leadership and the certain traits, the characteristics that are really hard to change as not being a viable leadership style anymore. Usually we look at how people act, behavioral leadership. So this means that you're not born as a leader, but you can develop as one. Behavioral leadership, skills leadership was based on the what you can accomplish. Behavioral leadership is how you behave. Focuses on the leader's experiences and how a leader reacts to those experiences. Which means if you remember our triangle before, context is important. Our leadership triangle is leaders, followers, and context. It's all three different components. And we said also last time that if we look at behavioral leadership, there was a Michigan studies and there was the Ohio State studies, and there was the um, Blake Mouton studies that looked at the different elements. If we're looking at direction and we're looking at supportive behaviors, then there's a cycle. There are times where I'm directing, high directive and low supportive. There are times where I become a coach and I'm very motivating and I try to persuade people, high directive and high supportive. There's high directive and low supportive, which is supporting. This is facilitating, getting people to collaborate, talking together. And then finally, delegating is low supportive and low directive behavior. And we as Americans typically say we want to be delegators, we want to be supporters, we want to be able to help develop our people. And as you'll see in this presentation, there's no good or bad way. There are just four ways of leading. There are times where you need to be directing, and there are times where you need to be coaching. There are other times you need to support and facilitate, and other times you need to delegate. And again, that context is important, right? So it's the leader, the follower, and that context. That situation is important. Not only does it help us determine which skills that we need to use to solve a problem, but it also is good to show us what behaviors we need to do to lead other people. So to get into these leadership behaviors and styles just a little bit more, directing is good when you're working on projects with others. It's really good when you're working with people who aren't with your company, such as contractors. It's not a good style to use when leading teams of people in your group or your full-time employees because you don't want to tell them what to do, although certain leaders are that way. But it's a great opportunity when you're working with somebody who doesn't work with your company. Maybe it's a supplier you're working with. Maybe it's a certain competitor you're working with. I'll give you an example. I just had somebody paint our house, part of our house, this week. And he said, well, what do you want? So you want to get together and just ask, what do you need painted? What colors do you need painted? When do you need them have them done, etc. And so I said, okay, the blue needs to be up on this wall and on that small wall segment up here. The rest of the walls will be white. The ceiling will be white. The trim will be white. The trim will be satin though, because I have children and they tend to write on things when they're very little. So I want to be able to clean it off easily. And telling him that directing was a very competent and very manageable leadership style. He wasn't asking for me specifically to help him with the event. He was able to do it. He was a contractor, but at the same time, he wanted to know what the goals were and when did it need to be done. That's directing style. And again, working really well with somebody who's a contractor, somebody who doesn't work for the company. So directing style is good in that regard. It's also really good when you are dealing with people in your own company, but they're new. So a new hire coming in, well, what do you expect of me? What do I need to do to get paid? What do you want me to do so I can be helpful to the organization? All of those are directing styles. And again, it's not a good or a bad style. It's just a style that happens given a certain circumstance. So the directing style is there. If we go a little further along that curve, remember we talked about a coaching style. This is a high supportive, and maybe it's not supportive. Maybe it's high directive. Um, Sorry, let me go back and look. Okay, so it's high directive and high supportive. There you go. So it's a coaching, persuading style. This is great when you're selling change or you're selling a new vision to the organization. Things aren't working out the way we want them to. We need to change the way we do things. We need to change our behavior with our customer. We need to change how the quality of the product. We need to change the services that we offer. Maybe we're offering a whole new service that we weren't doing before. This is coaching. This is persuading somebody. It's more than directing. I'm not telling you what we're going to do. Instead, I'm going to persuade you this is the way we need to move. This is the way we need to go. Coaching is used to get buy-in from followers. Okay, I need you to be motivated. I need you to move in this new direction the CEO has decided for us. This is coaching. This is the persuading part. It's a little bit more than just directing. Coaching is good to motivate employees to perform with new change, and it's great when working with new employees because you want to still maintain that relationship, but you're convincing people that need to change. They're convincing people we need a new vision. We're convincing people that the way we did things now is not what the way we did things is not now the way we're going to do things. We need to change in some fashion. So coaching is a very applicable one. Think of actual coaches in the sporting events, right? So if you have a basketball coach or you have a football coach, they're not going to do the play for you. You as the player are the player, but they're convincing you need to do a different kind of play. Convincing you we need to do a different kind of game. Convincing you that you need to do a different. You need to have a focus that's slightly different than what you're doing now. The third one is participative and supportive. The key word here is collaboration. This isn't just persuading to get buy-in. This is weigh-in leads to buy-in. So everybody gets the chance to put in some input, to get some feedback, and then have potentially their solution be chosen. So this is, we're coming across a problem. We need to increase our revenue by 10% for this quarter, and that's a lot of money. Okay, so we really need to increase our revenue. It's a big deal. What do you think? How should we do this? What are your recommendations? This is getting everyone's support and thoughts on the new change or the challenge, and it's that collaboration. It's sitting back and saying, okay, as the leader, I have to make a final decision, but I'm going to get everyone else's feedback first before we make that decision. Remember, at one point in the semester, we talked about balanced processing. That's what this is. It's asking everybody's feedback. What do you think? How they can bounce ideas off of each other, brainstorming, right? Again, weigh in leads to buy in. And it's good when you have team members who have authority to do something, but leadership has the final say. And an example would be a hiring process. We need to hire a new person. Team, I trust you in your decision making, but I'm going to be the person that gives them the final offer. Right? So who do you think is going to be the best candidate? And then we'll go from there. So again, it's that participative or supportive. And then the final level is delegation. Delegation is usually for leaders leading leaders. So best leading a team of leaders. There's little direction, little support. Everybody knows what they're doing. They're competent in their own fields, hopefully, right? They lead organizations, they lead groups of people. The leader has full authority for the team to make the final decision. What do you think we should do? A good example of this would be, guys, we are bloated. We need to have cost reductions of our inventory. We need to find ways to either buy inventory that's cheaper for us, or we need to get rid of obsolete inventory we don't need. Go ahead and make it happen. Just go ahead and do it. I trust that you're going to do it. I trust we're going to have this. Here's we've got to reduce our cost by 5%, whatever it is. I don't care how you do it. Just find some way to do it. There's very little direction, very little support. And again, there's no good or bad. It's just given a situation, given the people you're leading, given how much direction they need. This is what these 4 styles are, something everybody does. Now, here's what you'll find. You prefer one style. You either prefer the salesperson style, or you're a very direct style. You prefer the delegation style. Hey, I want to have everybody here. I want them to develop. You prefer the supportive or participative style. I want to be able to collaborate with everybody and get that feedback. There's only a mismatch on what styles needed between the situation, the context. So if I have a team full of very competent leaders, the directing style probably doesn't make sense. Right? Or if I have a group of employees that I care about and I enjoy, but are still employees, they don't really know the ins and outs of the company, or they don't know the higher level issues going on. Delegation probably doesn't make sense unless it's a really low risk situation, right? So usually delegations for people who are already leaders. There's only just a mismatch of style. And I wanted to put this slide in here because at the end of the day, this is what everything is. If you look on the left side, so this is from Technofunk, which I had no idea. I just happened to find this image somewhere and it made a lot of sense. On the left side of behavioral theories, it says the Michigan studies, the Ohio State studies, the studies by Blake and Newton. We've talked about these last time. So it's the relationship, it's the task versus the person, it's the structure of the organization versus the relationship, the trust building. Then on the right side is the orientation toward the task versus the orientation toward people. And that's kind of what we're looking at. We're looking between these studies. It's that country club versus it's the produce or perish perspective versus the team management perspective, or middle of the road. How do we feel toward the task? How do we feel toward people? Which one's more important? Which one do we prioritize? Which one do we focus on? Or can you balance them both delicately and manage to get them both to work? And like I said, when you do team leadership, it's exhausting. On the bottom really is what our behaviors are based on how we see people and based how we see our objectives. Our actions, our values, our beliefs, and our relationships really, the arrows, I would have the arrows point in to the behavioral theory. It dictates our behaviors. So, what I value, how I value people versus the task at hand, our relationships and how good they are, our beliefs, spiritual or otherwise, and our actions, they all stem from our attitudes and our behaviors. So, that behavior is really that for our primary focus. This is good stuff to know. And this is the idea we have with our behavioral theories. So I'm going to end it here, and hopefully that answers part 2 of behavioral theories. Know what directing, know what selling or persuading, know what participative and supportive behavior theory is, and know what delegation is. And those are important because, again, there's no good or bad one. It's just a context that we need to use the appropriate leadership style on. Otherwise, we come across as either being incompetent or somewhat of a jerk or something. It just doesn't make sense. So I'll end it here. If you have questions, send me an email. I look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.